And I always looked at Kevin Lerone, and I kind of felt like this is what I wanted to look like. I'll tell you this, Nick Walker is a bodybuilder's bodybuilder. I don't think there's anybody in the whole lineup that is more of a bodybuilder than Nick Walker.
The back-to-bull biceps is insane. I did not expect to see somebody go head-to-head against Derek Lunsford on the back-to-bull biceps.
Athletes and fans around the world, welcome to another episode of Primetime Muscle. As always, I'm Tim Wilkins. Thank you for joining us. And to my right, from around the world and judging,
I consider the man across from us one of the greatest icons in bodybuilding. He was a freaking mass monster battling with Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman. His podcast is so popular, it makes me jealous every time I watch because he's got tons of views and people love it. He is the one and only
Dennis James.
The Menace.
Oh, I thought you were headed there. The Menace. Dude.
Well, let me say thank you. Finally, I made it on the Primetime Muscle Show. So thank you guys for considering me and having me on as a guest.
Well, thanks for dressing up. Obviously, you've got tons of suits and you look great, but on your show, you get to kind of be a little more relaxed and have people that don't dress up at all on your show.
Right.
We try to take it up a notch, and of course, like every other guest, he outdid us. Yeah. So thank you.
I got to say something about the Menace podcast. In my opinion, it might be the best show out there. If you're an old school bodybuilder and you want to hear from the old school guys, right? The Menace podcast is the best show. I grew up, watching the guys in the 90s and 2000s. And Dennis has Milos there. He brings a lot of different guests. And those guys are talking about the past because they lived those days, right? And I think a lot of people do great podcasts, but the Menace podcast is the one that I watch when I want to go back in history and get a sense for it. And Dennis is a fantastic host. I commend you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, let's talk about this, though. I know as much as we can idolize the past, you guys are commenting on the future and the present. You are still giving back to the sport in a lot of ways. So what contests do you have all over the world, and how much are you out there doing your thing?
Well, I have a show here in Arizona. I started it in 2014, which will be, this year will be, I think, number 12. And, well, COVID, we had to cancel it one year, so it's going to be 11. And I also run the shows in Germany now, where we have 15 shows throughout the year.
Wow.
So I'm pretty busy running shows, yes.
So what's it like going back and doing shows in Germany, and how big an icon are you there after coming up through that system?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people know, some people maybe don't. I grew up in Germany. I was born and raised in Germany. I started bodybuilding there. I competed for the IFBB in Germany. First it was NABA, then it was the IFBB. So I have a great relationship with the German bodybuilding fans and all German bodybuilders from way back in the days, Achim Albrecht. I'm going back to, I just had him on as a guest. No, I forgot his name.
You were literally 19 when you started winning shows over there.
No, the first time I competed, I was 19. I did a junior show. I trained literally 5 months. I did a junior show, I won the overall. I didn't even know what I was doing. I did another junior show a couple of months later to qualify for the German championship, which I won the qualifier, but then for the German championship, I couldn't enter because I'm U.S. citizen. Back then, there was no international German championship, so I stopped bodybuilding completely. That was 86 in May. I completely stopped. Started in 85, stopped in 86, never trained another day until 1992 in March in Thailand, where I picked up the weights again.
Wow.
I have a question. You mentioned Achim Albrecht. He was a mass monster, a big guy. I remember him competing at the Arnold Classic against Sonny Schmidt and all those guys. Talk to us about the guys that inspired your bodybuilding career in Germany.
Well, to be honest, my inspiration came from magazines. Back then, it was the Flex magazine in Germany. They had one that was kind of similar. It was translated, and they called it the Sport Review. So, and I was looking at the guys, and I'm talking 92. I'm not talking about that junior time because I wasn't really paying attention to the sport too much. But in 1992, I was living in Thailand. I picked up the magazines from the airport. It was $14 a Flex magazine.
That's commitment in 1992, $14.
Yeah. And then I I saw guys like Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Kevin Levrone, and I always looked at Kevin Levrone and I kind of felt like this is what I wanted to look like. So, and I told Kevin in a few occasions, the very first time I met him, I told him, I said, you're the one that made me want to be a bodybuilder, because I knew I had some shoulder genetics, and I kind of had the same hairstyle, I wanted to be Kevin.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my inspiration from. And when it comes motivation, also, of course, 8-time Mr. Olympia Lee Haney, that time was for me.
Well, funny, sorry to interrupt. In 1998, you turned pro, and a lot of people say, based on your genetics, you would be the next Kevin Levrone, right? But it didn't turn out that way because you couldn't stick with just being nicely shaped. You were chasing Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, right? You wouldn't have placed as high as you did at the Olympia if you didn't gain tremendous amount of size and you became a mass monster. Talk to us about this change. Oh, I turned pro, I want to be like Kevin Levrone, but now I got to be 300 pounds to chase Ronnie Coleman.
Unfortunately, Ronnie Coleman was the Mr. Olympia at that time when I turned pro. So, and of course, my thought was, in order to get up there, you're going to have to be able to compete in size, which I regret today. And a lot of people ask me, what is your biggest regret? My biggest regret is to go away from my strength and just chase size to be able to stand next to the biggest guy in the lineup. And it didn't work out well for me. I mean, I did get the size, but I lost my shape. I had, I was naturally with a really small waist and good lines. And, once you go from 230 to 240 and then you go to 300, and I tell this to the athletes today, don't do it, try not to chase size, stick with your strength, because I probably would have fared way better than I did. And I did all right. I'm not saying I'm not
great.
complaining.
I mean, you're top 4 in the world.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah.
It's just when you ask me what would I change if I could, I would go back and I would stick to my guns and ride that out.
So I want to kind of transition some of that to the modern times. There was a lot of chatter in the last month or so. Regan Grimes got qualified. And there was some chatter whether or not he should go to this year's Olympia. Between your first Olympia and your last Olympia, how special was it every single time you got on stage?
Every time I qualified for the Olympia, it was special. And I qualified, and I remember in Thailand, I'm sitting in the go-go bar with my friends. They didn't even think that I was going to make it when I started lifting weights. It was a $100 bet. I told you guys the story maybe at one point. It was a $100 bet. I'm in the go-go bar, not training, 2 years in Thailand, having a good time. And then this tank top bodybuilders from Europe came into the bar every night, and they're just walking around. And I had a couple of drinks too much one night, and I said to this guy, to look like you would take me less than 3 months. That was a bet. I don't even know where that came from, to be honest. And because I knew I had the genetics. I knew that from before. So he said, there's no way. So we literally shook hands, $100, and I started going to the gym with them the next day. And now I forgot what the question was.
The question was how special it was to get on the Olympia stage each and every time.
Exactly. And so now I started competing. I started competing in NABA. I won the universe in 95, And then I said, how do I get to the Olympia? So I knew I had to switch federations. I had to be on the NPC or the IFBB worldwide, which was back then we were still connected, the IFBB International. So I said, what do I do? I'm a U.S. citizen. I either have to do the World Championship or I go to the U.S. and I do the NPC, USAAs, or the Nationals, which I did. I came here to the USAAs. I signed up for the NPC membership. I went to the Border State Classic in San Diego
with John Lindsay.
Back in '97, won the overall, did the Nationals in Dallas. The same 3 weeks later, I got 4th and went straight to the USAs in '98. First year, they introduced the super heavies.
Yeah.
I was a super heavy with 232 pounds, won the overall first try. So now I tell my friends, I'm making it to the Olympia. In year 2000, I'm on the Olympia stage. And they said, I have another drink and shut up.
So there's
Literally told
another
them, shut
$100,
up.
or did you up the ante
No,
this time?
no. I just told them, I said, and in '99, I did my first pro show, which was the New York Pro. I got my ass handed to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even funny. It was, And then I came back in 2000 and did the Ironman. And I put in for the Arnold, but I didn't get the invite. They told me, they said something like, if you place top 6, you could get an invite.
He doesn't have a last name. It's a Dennis and the James.
Yeah,
and
I
he's
didn't get the
German.
invite, but then Jim Mannion and Peter McGuff petitioned for me. So I'm in California with Milos still, and we're sitting there, and Wednesday, literally Wednesday before the show, I said, go get yourself a ticket, come to the Arnold. I flew to the Arnold. I placed 4th in the lineup where I got to stand next to Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Kevin Levrone. 3 of the guys I was watching in the magazines. I never met them in person. So now I'm standing in the stage next to them and placed 4th.
I got chills. That is awesome.
Literally.
That is
Dennis,
awesome.
Qualified for the Olympia 2000. I was on the stage.
So when I think of your career, I think of you, Dexter Jackson, Jay Cutler, and Ronnie Coleman right there at the Olympia, right? And you're right there with the best guys at the Olympia. Not too many people can say that in their bodybuilding careers.
Yeah.
You're posing right next to Coleman, Jay Cutler, and Dexter Jackson. You placed 4th. You said, it's one of my biggest regrets that I chased the size. How do you think you would have fared if you had stayed with your lines? Would you have been 3rd place? You know, have you beaten possibly Dexter on that call-up? Would you have surpassed maybe Jay with your beautiful lines?
Well, keep in mind, I was beating Dexter the first 3 years of our pro career, every show. And Dexter was at a point where he said, damn, I can't get him. He's too big, you know, because I got bigger and bigger. But then I started losing my line, and Dexter stayed true to his lines. And that's how Dexter
And 7 years
kind of
later-
surpassed me and never looked back, you know. But I was beating Dexter in the beginning. You know, so I think if I would have stayed, I can't tell you where I placed because we're 25 years later, you know. I think that I would have probably won more shows with the shape that I had. But if I would have placed higher at the Olympia, I don't know.
Well, we're going to take that. We're going to hear more from Dennis. And we're going to get you guys, we're going to get your insights because one of the biggest talks of the sport the last, I don't know, few years, but especially the last couple months, is the newly qualified return to the Olympia, Nick Walker. So we're gonna kind of bat around where is Nick Walker gonna place and can he win the big show when we come back on Primetime Muscle.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Weider, Olympia Finals, start now!
And we're back. And I mentioned on the out that we're going to talk about Nick Walker. Have you discussed him on the podcast, on The Menace?
Always. We always talk about Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had him on?
Yes, I had Nick on at one point, yeah.
He's a fierce competitor. He's a focused. You know, you guys talk about in the old school training. You talk about intensity, but not like throwing weights like the younger generation. There's a dedication and a focus. I find him to be intense when it comes to the sport. We went out to eat at what was that, Fleming, somewhere really nice where the steaks are $70 a piece and you still can't see them. You need 2 to get a full meal. And he was eating 10 months out from the Olympia. He was eating from his meal prep. A dedicated, hardcore guy.
Yeah.
But now it comes down to shape. And you talk about this is my only thing with Nick, and I love Nick as a competitor and as a person. Is he losing shape, or where do you see him in the future on that top 1 to 5?
I'll tell you this. Nick Walker is a bodybuilder's bodybuilder. I don't think there's anybody in the whole lineup that is more of a bodybuilder than Nick Walker. Yes, I was criticizing Nick from the beginning. We talk about his shape. We talk about his ab control. There's a lot of things that you can critique. But when you see when he steps on stage how he works on those things, that he controls his abs and even his shape, he has managed to get better every year. So He's so impressive when he gets on stage. And I don't judge him by pictures that he posts on Instagram because I don't care about any pictures no more. I said I stopped looking at pictures a long time ago. When he steps on stage, he's locked in, and he's not as bad as people say he is, shape-wise. Yes, he doesn't have the smallest waist, but when you put it all together, for me, now he's more proportioned than some more shapely guys from top to bottom because his legs match his upper body.
I agree with Dennis, but I'm also sick and tired of all of you haters, and a lot of you are haters who have been in the bodybuilding industry for a long time. Nick Walker is the most popular bodybuilder in America. We saw in Pittsburgh. Samson Dauda is the Mr. Olympia. Derek has won the Olympia. Hadi has won the Olympia. None of them are as popular as Nick Walker. He's the most popular one. He's got a phenomenal most muscular. And all this talk, his waist. When Ronnie Coleman won the Olympia in 2003, nobody was paying attention to his waist. Everybody was saying how big, how nasty he was. When Marcus Rule won the New York Pro and he looked massive on the most muscular, the audience went crazy. You are not talking about his waist. When Dennis James took that picture, most muscular, at the beach, that all of us reference right now, nobody was looking at his waist, okay? You want to have a small waist? I like it. It looks nice. But then if you really love it, go be a ballerina. We like big guys. We like freaky guys. The audience loves them. You don't like them, you're just a stupid hater.
I thought he was going to break into I like big guts and I cannot lie.
And I like small waist, but it's becoming ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's a time that we all talked about striated glutes. You couldn't win a show if you didn't have striated glutes. You got to have striated glutes. It became like the glute conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, Dorian Yates didn't have the smallest waist. He won 6 Mr. Olympias. You know, we had plenty of guys that won the Mr. Olympia. Hadi, Derek.
Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler. Hey, it's nice to have a small waist, but there's a lot of other body parts, and this guy is freaking fantastic. I love him.
Let me ask you guys both this, because as a competitor and especially as a judge, getting on that stage at every level, but especially Olympia year over year, and we've missed Nick the last 2 years, those improvements really stand out to a judge. Mm-hmm. You judge?
No.
You promote.
No.
But those improvements, those are important to you guys to see. I know you're judging who's on stage at the time, but when you look up at Nick and you see a dialed-in waist, and you see he turns to that side chest, and the gut isn't exposed, he's flat, he's dialed everything in, that jumps out at you, doesn't it?
He has possibly the best side chest in the business, okay? He has the best most muscular. Find me one guy right now, put the B-roll most muscular Nick Walker. Find me one guy that has a better most muscular. His front double biceps is good. It's not the best one. You can give it to Derek and Samson. The bottom line is that he wins poses. He's the best in the world in some poses. And I think people are focusing on one of his body parts, but they're not focusing on the rest. He has improved every step of the way. I'm a huge fan. I think he can be Mr. Olympia. Yes, I'm saying right now, Nick Walker can be Mr. Olympia.
Here's my question for you, because I threw this out to Tarek and Milos a couple weeks ago, I think. So the side chest is insane. Mm-hmm. His back doubles come up.
His back double is right up there with Derek's.
And they went point for a couple of weeks.
And I had Nick beating him.
Yes, as a lot of people
in
did.
Pittsburgh, yep.
So you start to add those things up and you start to think, okay, he's going to take a pose or two, and it might be, Big Steve would be beside himself to do a 4-man call-out. Derek, Nick, Hadi, Samson, they all come out to the front. And if Nick starts taking a couple poses, it screws the whole dynamic up.
We did that on the podcast. We said, instead of predicting who's doing what, let's go pose by pose. Nick won the most poses out of all of them. So if somebody says Nick can win the Olympia, he's out of his mind. I think Nick, especially what he showed in Pittsburgh, he showed everybody that he has Mr. Olympia potential. And it doesn't take much. All it takes is for some of the other guys, like Samson, Hadi, to not be 100%, because you can 100% guarantee that Nick Walker steps on that stage and he's going to be spot on.
And that's been the resentment of a lot of people in the internet, because Bob Cicherillo, who's the master of ceremony for the Olympia, a friend of mine, 2000 Mr. USA's, he says Nick Walker is going to be fighting for what, 7th, 8th place? And it doesn't make sense. If you lose by 1 point to the guy that has just beaten the current Mr. Olympia a few weeks back, you can't speculate that he's going to be 7th and 8th. Yeah, anything can happen at the Olympia. Samson can fall to 10th. But if we're going to be logical, we have to assume that Nick Walker is a lot closer to these guys than what Bob and Sean are saying. And I respect their opinion. They have the right to mention it. But don't tell me there's going to be about 7 or 8 guys that are going to place ahead of him. Well, Bruce Tabani. We love Bruce Tabani. He hasn't been to the Olympia.
Yep.
Okay? Ronnie Coleman. Yeah, Ronnie Coleman, he can come back as 2003 and beat everybody. But that's unlikely. So I see all these mentioning of names to put ahead of Nick Walker. It makes no sense.
Well, that begs the question, Dennis. You hit on something really important in the first segment when you're talking about your biggest regret. And with Nick qualifying late April, early May, and having 2 or 3 months before he has to really dial back in the diet, although he stays pretty close to striking distance, what would your big piece of advice be to him for the next 6 months, 5 months of a mindset and a you go back to the drawing board? What should he be thinking and doing for the next 5 months?
Nick, if you see this, don't change anything. Keep doing what you're doing, exactly what you're doing this last 6 months. Keep writing the same thing. Just perfect your craft. Come in, be 100% spot on, and you are fighting for the Olympia title. I don't care what no one says.
Judge?
I agree with Dennis. I think he's 100% right. I'm just going to add this. If you're speculating that Nick Walker is going to end up in 8th, 9th, or 10th, you're far away from the reality. But it's your opinion. And if you are a competitor like Nick Walker, you got to be perfectly okay with anybody speculating anything. My profession is to be a judge. And when somebody goes so close against Derek Lunsford, who has just beaten Samson Dauda, I have to put him as one of the best bodybuilders in the world. And Nick Walker is just that.
All right, we're going to finish up talking about Nick, his strengths and weaknesses. That's the advice. I'm going to go with that as well. Nick, when you watch this, not if, they watch the show.
Of course.
They love the show. 5 pounds heavier between now and Olympia is not your cure. You're going to look 10 pounds heavier by being 2 pounds lighter and being the most conditioned, massive guy on the stage. We're going to talk about that and more. We're going to look at some pictures and talk about some Nick when we come back on Primetime Muscle. All right, Dennis, when we were off air, we talk a lot. In the previous segment, we're talking about Nick's waist. And so many people talk about it as a minus, as a negative. But you're really adamant, and you showed us a picture we're going to put up here in a minute, that it's really surprisingly, compared to the other guys when you put the two bodies on stage, it's better than people give it credit for.
Nick's waist, for the weight, he's at least 260, 265 pounds on stage, and his waist is considered small. The only problem he has is when he loses control and he lets the stomach go. Then it appears to be a little bit wider. But when he controls it, he does not have a big waist.
There's one thing that I don't like about Nick Walker, and I have told him, I don't like how he hits the front double biceps. He hits it square, square. He's got the arms and then the two legs are parallel. I would advise him to create an angle on that front double biceps. A little bit of a flex Wheeler angle, not only because you would minimize the waist, it would make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. I actually recommend that to almost everybody. What happens is guys have big quads and they want to show the quads with both of them there. And we as judges, we can see you have big quads just with one leg, right?
Well, let me ask you this though, Tarek. Are they going to give him trouble? Square up, gentlemen. Turn sideways. Is Steve going to kind of dial him back around and say, let's all stay on the same plane?
No, we're just talking about him angling to the side. So he's hitting his front double biceps and both legs are straight up and he's hitting it like this. And then what he does is he squeezes to show his abs. I think that's a mistake. When he hits his front double biceps, he has to stay up here, big. I'm not really interested in seeing him with the abs here. And Milos disagreed with me, I can see it, but stay big on top. Don't squeeze, because then you get smaller. And then create an angle like Flex Wheeler did. It's tradition. He just creates an angle with the legs and minimizes the waist, and he makes aesthetically pleasing. Dennis was showing us the picture. The dude has a small waist. Yeah. Based on his size, he has a small waist. Let's use it.
I kind of disagree with him right there. And I'm glad that, he's a judge and I respect his opinion, but that's why we have more judges on the panel, because not everybody feels the same. I think the way he hits his front double is actually good for him because he knows how to control his waist when he flexes his abs. Where if he would try what Tarek just basically asked for, I think it would look not, because he doesn't have Flex Wheeler's physique. So, and I tell this to competitors all the time, try not to copy poses that look good on someone else. You have to see if it looks good on you, because if you don't have the same shape and the same muscle bellies, it's not going to come across. So, it was worth a try.
And I think Dennis has a great point. It might not work on Nick Walker's physique, but I think he needs to try other things.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Try other things. Maybe the angle on the legs wouldn't work, but bringing the body up would work. Maybe, squeezing the abs would work, but maybe the angle on the legs would work. I just would like for him to try other things. What has he improved? The back double biceps is insane. I did not expect to see somebody go head-to-head against Derek Lunsford on the back double biceps, and I was shocked. Because Hadi on the back double biceps, it feels like he doesn't have the lower back separation. And Samson still needs a little bit more of a wider back. If you're talking about back double biceps, it's going to be Nick and Derek on top. Most muscular, Nick is going to win.
Side chest.
Side chest, he is massive. His side triceps, I love it. But I think, I agree with Milos, he needs to bring it a little bit out to make himself look a little wider on the side triceps. Derek did that. Derek improved.
Symmetry, he's come up a lot.
His legs improved, right?
Yep.
His legs are bigger right now, so the arms are out of this world. If I had arms like that, man, I wouldn't wear a shirt with sleeves in my life. I would marry with a sleeveless shirt.
Now, here's part of the problem. For arms at this year's Olympia. You just did the Olympia battle a few weeks ago and had Samson, Brandon, and Nick.
Derek.
And Derek, I'm sorry. But Brandon and Samson, their arms were massive.
You were not impressed with Derek's arms?
He didn't catch the angle, maybe. His arms are massive. He's massive. But there's something about Brandon shocked me how big he looks right now.
It's kind of like an illusion game, right? Because Brandon is shorter than Samson, but he carries that weight so nicely. You look at these guys at the Olympia and you go, these guys are monsters. You look at them in person and they're like, Samson is a big dude. There's just no other way around it. He's tall, he comes in, and he looks like a massive dude. Brandon carries the weight right. Derek is the guy that once he takes off his shirt, you kind of see everything that people talk about. It's him taking off his shirt that you see those lats, right? That you go like, what the fuck is that? He's so dense. But I got to agree with you. Maybe Brandon and Samson have bigger arms than Derek, and that's not a knock on Derek. That's just to say that those guys might be just a little bit ahead. Nick's still ahead of all of them on the arm department.
So let's go back to that with one of the impressive poses. Derek was in the final stages of prep last year, and he was walking away from getting a drink, or walking to getting a drink, and his wife just grabbed the phone and said, "Do that again, but don't pose, don't flex, do anything." They look like the plates on a rhinoceros. His lats were massive and rock hard. How is Nick's for like the lat spread? How is Nick compared to Derek on that one?
Well, Derek's lat spread is a little more dominant than Nick's. But I tell you, I have Nick right there with the back double. You know, I mean, Derek's wider. He has the width in the lats. But Nick has the density and the thickness all the way from top to bottom. So if you ask me, if we judge a back double bicep, do we judge it strictly off the back, or do we look at the whole pose?
Yeah.
From arms to back to glutes to hamstrings to calves. Because if that's the case, I give the pose to Nick. I'm sorry if you don't like that. Until the day before the Pittsburgh Pro, we've been talking about Derek's back double biceps as a no-brainer. Best in the business. Nobody even close. And Nick proved me wrong. He proved me wrong so many times.
He proved us all wrong.
Yep.
He had lines on the hamstrings that Derek didn't.
Yeah.
Derek
in his back double is glutes.
Yeah, he's got the glutes, the width, but you got to put Nick Walker right there on the back. If there's we're speculating here, but if there is a four-man call-out at the Olympia, Samson, Hadi, Derek, and Nick is possibly going to win the most muscular. He's possibly going to win the side chest. He might beat Derek on the back double or be second place on that pose. He might be second place on side triceps. He's going to beat a lot of guys on abs and thighs. He's not going to be Hadi. Hadi's going to beat on that. On the front double biceps, we got to see Samson. He's got to bring the lines. But we're really looking analytically at a guy that can win poses against the three Mr. Olympias we have on stage.
Right.
How can you say he's going to be 8th, 9th? I mean, I don't know.
But in Derek's defense, everything I just said is judged off of Pittsburgh. So now, the Derek from the Arnold was a better Derek. So I didn't see that version next to Nick in Pittsburgh. So therefore, I'm talking about the version of Derek in Pittsburgh, which I think was not as good as he was at the Arnold 2 weeks prior.
Well, and interestingly enough, that was a better Derek than the Olympia.
Yes.
So he's got that in the arsenal to show up in 4 months from the Pittsburgh, 5 months, and be whatever Derek he needs to be on stage.
Yeah, but here's the old bodybuilding issue. Who can peak more than once a year? There hasn't been one yet. So if Derek, because Derek thought he can do it in Pittsburgh and in the Olympia, and my concern was that he's not going to be the same in Pittsburgh, and it was exactly what happened. So now my concern is that he's not going to be the same at the Olympia, because he already peaked at the Arnold.
Oh, we got to put this down for another segment while Dennis is here. Don't let us forget to talk about, okay, can these guys peak more than once in a year? And you guys used to do 8, 10, 12, 15 shows in a year and take 3 titles.
Yeah, but nobody peaked 10 times. You chose one show and you focus on that one event.
Okay.
It's hard. Look at Ronnie. Ronnie did the Arnold in 2001. He looked unbelievable.
And then New Orleans.
And in the Olympia, he almost lost to Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
He wasn't even close.
And then New Orleans, the last big guy that was the Samson size was Gunter. That was in that 320 range where Samson is right now.
Yeah.
Last Olympia, I think Gunter was 325. Samson is 324 right now.
I don't think he was 325 at the Olympia.
You know, it's funny
It
because
was interesting. I'll tell you a funny story.
Hadi, the year last year, Hadi won the Arnold Classic, and it was possibly his best ever, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't look as good
Exactly.
at the Olympia.
Yeah. And that was my concern too. Because once you peak, and Derek at the Arnold was peaked, I mean, there's no way he could have been any better. There's no way. So now the next thing is what? You go slightly back. Now, how far back you go, that's something to be
But what is
determined.
the distance? Sorry, I just have this question. Dennis, what is the difference? If you had to rank Derek's look at the Arnold as a 10, what would you rank his look at Pittsburgh, and how would you rank his look at the Olympia? Arnold being 10. What would be his look in Pittsburgh?
His leg, it was, I would say 8.
What about the Olympia?
I don't know. I have to see what he
No,
looks
the
like.
previous one.
The previous one, he was probably a 7.
Okay.
7 or 8, somewhere there. He was not far off from the Olympia in Pittsburgh.
Pass me one of those tubs, would you, Derek?
Well,
You know, if you're going to peak on or off season, we need to give a shout out to our sponsor, Global Formulas, who makes this show possible. We thank you greatly. And speaking of guys that have been peaking, the team from Global Formulas have been winning their contest and getting qualified for the Olympia left and right. Congratulations to Jacob Frank and his team. But if you want that peak when you're in there training, Super Freak OMG. I absolutely love this stuff, and it's a great flavor. Derek, you got the Pro Zero that I just had 2 servings of this morning.
I've traveled with Jacob, and Jacob Frank is a genius when it comes to formulation. I've seen him do seminars, talk to people in biochemistry. If you look at this protein that he created, it has 0 carbs, 0 sugars, 0 fat, 0 cholesterol. You're getting the protein. Now, in addition to that, right, which is very important, 0 aspartame, 0 artificial colors, 0 casein, 0 milk protein. So what he does is he basically brings you the purest form of protein to your body. A lot of times companies, they put 50, 40 grams of protein, but it's coming in with a lot of chemicals that are not going to be good for your body. I know Jacob, he's created this protein, which in my opinion is the best in the business.
What would you call something like that if you created it?
It's the Pro Zero.
Pro Zero, because of all the zeros.
Yeah.
Thank you, Global Formulas. Be sure to try that stuff out. Dennis, it flew by. God, it was fun.
Yeah, awesome, man. I can get used to this.
Yeah, well, we can get used to having you in that chair. Derek?
Great. I loved the discussion with Dennis. You know, I loved Milos being here, but I think Dennis might be surpassing Milos' popularity on the show.
Well, we'll know when you like and subscribe and share and comment on how much you liked this show, your thoughts on Nick, his competition, what poses you think he's going to win. And as always, thank you for joining us on Primetime Muscle. I'm Tim Wilkins. We'll see you on the next show.